A startup with 5 people can now build a working prototype over a weekend, almost for free. Which means if your competitors can do the same thing, what exactly are you protecting? The barrier to building has collapsed, and that changes everything about what competitive advantage actually means now. Welcome to Tech for Non-Techies. This is a podcast for business leaders and non-technical founders building the future in the age of AI. Whether you've been in business for 100+ years and you're looking to modernize, or whether you're building something new, this is the show for you. You'll learn how to come up with new ideas and make them come to life, no matter the size of your organization. I've taught tech and innovation at Oxford University, advised companies like Microsoft, and written for the Harvard Business Review. You're going to hear the frameworks and the thinking that I've built and tested and taught at the highest level. And now, it's your turn. Let's get started. Hello, smart people. How are you today? I'm in a different room for those of you who are watching on video. I'm in a different room to usual because my baby has taken over my office. And he is 7 kilos. He weighs 7 kilos and he's somehow dominating a 4-bedroom house. How does that happen? Anyway, I have a bit of a cold today and it's the middle of summer, which I feel just really unfair. I feel like it's not supposed to happen. So I spent half a day yesterday lying in bed, eating baked goods and watching a streaming service. And you know what? It helped. Although I did feel really guilty lying in semi-darkness when it was a glorious sunny day outside and my nanny was out in the garden with my baby and my cat. And I was like some underworld creature lying in a dark cave, munching. Anyway, I think we high-achieving people, we put pressure on ourselves to work and to get results, which is, obvious. But we also put pressure on ourselves to enjoy ourselves, which is less obvious. So like yesterday I was thinking, it's a sunny July day, and if you're not working, you must be happily frolicking in the sun. And if you're not, then you're wasting the day. And this actually sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, like, you must go and be happy, you must go and frolic. But sometimes you don't want to frolic. Sometimes you want to lie in a dark room with a plate full of pastries and watch some dumb stuff, basically. And I think now my brain actually feels revived and recovered. So it is exactly what I needed. So today, I want to share some key insights with you. And these insights come from a corporate workshop that I'm going to be teaching next week. And this episode is going to be full of super useful points that you can basically just remember and say it at work today and then look like a very deep and innovative thinker. So you are welcome. And by the way, if you are finding this content really useful, then please leave the show a rating and a review, because I often feel like I'm speaking into the void and I'm wondering, who is there? Who am I speaking to? This is why I've loved doing the sample consulting session. So I get to know you and then it feels more like a two-way conversation. So book a sample consulting session. And if you haven't yet, leave this show a rating and a review so I know that we're together. Anyway, so the workshop that I'm teaching next week is called Innovation in the Age of AI, What's Changed, What It Means for You and for Your Competitors. Interesting, right? So the basic premise is this. Until fairly recently, it cost a lot of money to test an idea and to bring it to market. And with AI, that has changed. And if, as you've heard me talk about many times on this show, you can now build a working prototype in a couple of hours and then test it with your target market in literally one afternoon. Then you can hand it over to developers and they can build out a simple first version much more quickly than before, because they can use Claude Code and also a bunch of other AI tools to basically speed up production. So even on the development side, it's cheaper and it's quicker. And this is really good news for obvious reasons, but it's also a threat because, you'll learn. Most leaders are not sitting with the threat part enough. We're mostly focusing on the opportunity, and that's a good thing. You want to be a positive thinker. You want to focus on the opportunity, but this episode is more about the threat bit. So here are some questions I want you to think about. If anybody can build a version of your product over a weekend, what does that mean for your business? And this is not a hypothetical question because your competitors are asking this question right now, because what if your competitors could build a version of your product and make a more successful business out of it than you because they've got better distribution, because they've got better customer relationships and a better brand? That would be very unpleasant. This is also what investors and startup founders are thinking about. So, in other words, the competitive landscape has changed as a result of how quickly and how cheaply we can build new products with AI. Now, you need to have a laser focus on what cannot be copied over a weekend, because this is where your competitive advantage lies. And so here's where to look, basically. So your customer relationships and the trust that you have built with your customers over the years, that is one of your competitive advantages. Your proprietary data, the information that you've accumulated that nobody else has. Your team's specific expertise and institutional knowledge. So the first 2 points were really relevant for corporates. Your team specific expertise, this is relevant for corporates and it is relevant for startups. Your brand and your reputation. What people believe about you before they even speak to you. This is why reputational personal brand, they matter so much, especially if you're the person creating something new. Also, your distribution, the channels, the audiences, and the partnerships that you've already built. That's a key competitive advantage in the age of AI. These are your real advantages. The product is now kind of just a proof of concept. So yes, in a way, business has got more innovative in some ways easier, but in other ways, it has got harder. So unfortunately, we're still not at the stage where we get to have our cake and eat it, unless you are me yesterday when I literally laid in bed and ate cake. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to give you 3 examples of companies that did not have the most innovative technology. They didn't have the best tech. That was not their competitive advantage, but they had uncopyable assets. And the examples I'm going to give you, they are before the age of AI, but they're big and famous. So I want you to learn from these examples because most of you are going to know about at least a couple of them. And essentially, these case studies, they also apply in the age of AI. So you can take a startup, you can take a new innovative concept and literally just plug it into these examples and you'll get the same result. So, example number 1, Nike and the Nike Run Club app. So, Nike did not win because they built the best fitness app, and also apps was not, their key thing. Like their key thing is running shoes. And by the way, if you haven't read Shoe Dog, that's the memoir by the founder of Nike. I highly recommend it. Anyway, so Nike, they created this Run Club app, and other apps like that existed. So there was Strava, there was Map My Run, there are a bunch of others. And Nike won because they had 40 years of brand equity with runners. So they actually started, so if you don't know the origin story of Nike, they basically started as a running shoe company when runners were not really popular. And so they have lots of brand equity with runners, specifically with athletes in general, and they have a distribution network of millions of loyal customers. And they already had this incredible brand. And the technology, the app technology, that was available to anybody. But the trust, the brand, the distribution, it wasn't. Okay, so that's example 1. Example 2, if you worked in financial services, you're going to be very familiar with this. Bloomberg. The Bloomberg Terminal. I remember I had to use these. They are so bloody ugly, honestly. So the Bloomberg Terminal is not loved because it has the best interface, because it is horrific. Bloomberg won because the company spent decades accumulating proprietary financial data that nobody else had. So they weren't the hottest, they were the smartest. And so the data is the moat. The product is just how you access that moat, how you access that data, rather. Peloton. So Peloton is an example that I suspect most of you know. So Peloton did not invent the exercise bike. We've all been to gyms and seen exercise bikes before. They also did not invent streaming videos, right? They combined both of these things in a very specific brand identity, and they built a community of loyal customers who were completely obsessed with the individuals, with the people who are basically creating the workouts. And I definitely had my Peloton obsession during the pandemic. So they combined this identity, they combined the influences, and this way they built a community of loyal customers who felt they belonged to something. We were part of something. And when competitors launched cheaper bikes with better screens, Peloton's retention still stayed high because you can copy the hardware, but you basically couldn't copy the cult. There was, what was her name? You know the one I'm thinking of? She's Latina. She's got her own wolf pack and a huge Instagram following. Robin. Yeah, I was hugely obsessed with her. But she is very inspiring. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, she's got a great Instagram. Anyway, so I know that Peloton ran into trouble later, but that wasn't inevitable. Because, for example, if they'd sold during the pandemic when they were super, super hyped up, they would have made out like bandits. So the strategic questions that all of these examples raise is that essentially, if too many companies are optimizing for the thing that used to be hard, which is building the product, the question is, which of the above mentioned uncopyable assets do you have? And are you actually using them? And if you don't have them yet, which ones should you be building right now? So I'm just going to go through them again, just so you have them. And by the way, a really smart thing to do would be to go to the web page for this episode. The link to that is in the show notes, and just go to the transcript and literally just get these bullet points and go to work and say them and sound really smart. So your competitive advantages are your customer relationships and the trust that you've built over the years, your proprietary data, your team-specific expertise and institutional knowledge, your brand and your reputation, and your distribution. So which ones do you have? Which ones of these uncopyable assets do you have? And are you using them? If you want to discuss this, if you're not sure, if you're thinking, oh, I think we're using this, but we're not using that, how could we use some of these assets better? Or if you are building something from scratch and you're thinking, okay, I don't have any of these assets, okay, or I think I don't have any of these assets, can you tell me which ones to build first? Then this is how to use how to use your sample consulting session. So as you might have heard in the last couple of episodes, I am currently doing a coaching program, which is all about reinventing my business. And you're kind of hearing some of the results here, the podcast interest change and so on. And as a result of this reinvention, one of my tasks is to do lots and lots of sample consulting sessions with people who are already in my audience, already in my orbit. I really want to get to know you. So I'm not going to be doing these forever because it is unsustainable. But right now I'm doing one-on-one free consulting sessions. And my aim is to keep this up over the summer. And these consulting sessions, they're literally a free way to get my advice. And if you're listening to this podcast, you clearly want to hear my advice. So this advice is going to be tailored to you, and it's going to be focused on my two areas of expertise, which is product thinking, product innovation, and personal brand. So if what you're hearing in this episode is sparking questions for you, then let's talk. You could be a founder working a new solution, or you could be scaling up, or you could be in a corporate and wondering how to create something new, or be seen as an innovator in your field. The sample consulting session with me will be a super great way to dig deep into what you want to create and then make a plan to go from there, and then make a plan to get there. To book your session, just go to the link in the show notes. And I won't be doing these forever because, as I said, it's unsustainable. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, this sounds like a really good idea, but let me get home, let me go do something else, and then I'll book it. The reality is you'll forget and then you won't do it. And then by the time you want to do it, it's very possible I won't be doing them anymore. So if you listen to this and you wanted to book it, just go ahead and do it now. Now, let's talk about innovation in the age of AI and how it relates to corporate leaders and to founders. So the corporate leader angle is this. Large organizations have the most uncopyable assets because you've got relationships, you've got data, you've got brand, unless you've completely ruined it, which most of you haven't, and you've got distribution. So you've got all of these amazing, amazing assets. But large companies prototype the slowest and validate the least. So that's where your Achilles heel is. In corporates, people love making PowerPoints about innovation and then sharing them with committees. This is literally what McKinsey will come in and charge you lots and lots of money to do. And I'm telling you that this is a great way to waste time and to achieve nothing. In a corporate, your opportunity is to combine what a startup does fast, which is innovation and product thinking and testing ideas and getting them out to market quickly, with the assets that you already have. If you do these two things, basically you're unstoppable. And that's how you get the big share price spikes and the bonuses. That's the actual innovation opportunity inside a large organization. It also sounds interesting, so why not do it? Okay, now let's talk about the founder angle. Early stage founders have almost none of these uncopyable assets, they usually have the team angle. So if they want to start something, they usually have some sort of credibility, or they've basically done some impressive stuff before. But when it comes to brand, audience, and distribution, proprietary insight, sometimes they have a proprietary insight, but brand, audience, distribution, usually not. So basically, that means you need to build them deliberately. As a founder, this is what you have to create. So you're not only creating your product, you're also creating your audience, you're also creating your distribution, you're also creating your brand. And these things are as important as building the product. And I often see founders just focus on the product stuff and then be like, oh, we'll just build this amazing product and then good things will happen. And if you don't have a plan, then good things never happen, unfortunately. So this is why personal brand and product thinking go together. If you want to build something new without massive corporate resources, you have to combine building yourself up as an innovator. So then you basically have a bunch of customers who are ready to buy and use your thing as soon as you create it. Okay, so let's sum up what we've learned today. The question is not whether you can build, because that is so much easier and so much cheaper now. The question is, what are you building on top of? And whether that foundation is something that nobody else can replicate. And that's your competitive advantage in the age of AI. Now, my dear smart person, tell me, wasn't this interesting? Wasn't this useful? Wasn't this insightful? Yes to all three. And if you agree with me, then please leave this show a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast. And if you're not yet subscribed, then please subscribe, because honestly, it's just going to carry on getting even better from here, although this is pretty good. Honestly, when I get your comments, when I get your reviews, it's really meaningful to me and my team to know that you're there on the other side, that you're listening, that you're learning, that you're applying. So ping me from the other side, leave a rating and a review so I know that you're there and that we've got a dialogue going and that I'm not just speaking into the ether. That would be lovely. And on that note, thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you for listening. And I shall be back in your delightful smart ears next week. Ciao.